So it's Tuesday, March 28th, 2017. It's the Blount County Corrections Partnership. So I'm going to do a roll call. And
Mr. Chairman, I have taken the roll, and you have 9 members present.
so we have a quorum. Next, I want to read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm may sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use another stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you've reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles. In the event of a severe weather in the area, chairperson of the committees will determine that there is a need to evacuate and to designate severe weather shelter. I think we don't need to read that part, but so we've have a quorum. Next is public input on items on the agenda. So I see one person. Ms. Miller, if you want to come up.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Karen Miller, Commissioner District 4, Seat B, and I'm glad this committee, you have this partnership committee. I've been watching it through this period of time, and I'm just disappointed that you haven't come up with solutions to the issue that we're dealing with the overcrowding, instead of just hiring an architectural firm. We've had a study done. It cost the taxpayers money, that we have not had the total results discussed of that study, and I feel that's very unjust to the citizens of Blount County, because our tax dollars are valuable and we do not need to be wasting on architectural firms. That we should be doing the studies and discussions. That's why this committee has been formed, and I hope in the future you will be open and to suggestions, come up with suggestions and solutions among yourselves to better, to correct the situation we have here in Blount County and not waste the taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Next is a presentation from the purchasing director. Ms. Branham, if you'd like to come forward.
Hello, I'm Katie Kerr. I'm the purchasing agent for those of you that don't know me. And I'm here today just to kind of update you on where we are in the process with the RFQ and explain how we got where we are. At the end of my brief presentation, Michael Brady will be here to introduce themselves to you. So the last time I met with you all, the Corrections Partnership, you requested that my office solicit a request for qualifications, for architectural planning, for design services, and for program services. At that point, I went on to the legislative body, to the full commission, and asked the commission to authorize me to put out an RFQ for those exact services. And we have done that through the commission. At that point, we created an evaluation team. The evaluation team consisted of Chris Cantrell, which works for the Sheriff's Office, Commissioner Mike Kraler, which also serves on the Corrections Partnership, Don Stallions, which is the Director of General Services, and Charles Sterling, which is a citizen and a retired engineer that's been very familiar with this project in the past. We put out the request for qualifications, and the intent was to solicit for a licensed architectural and/or engineering firm that could provide specified services, not just specified services, but professional services to us, and that they would help us with the jail and any other correctional service needs that we may have. At that point, we sought a recommendation, and we had 7 different firms that responded to us. And throughout this whole process, please know that my office worked with CTAST and with NIC to get the best product that we could. The 7 qualifications that we received, you'll notice most of these are local firms, was Barbara McMurray, Cope Architecture, Michael Brady Incorporated, Mosley Architects, Shrive Hattery, Spirit Architecture, and Wakefield Beasley and Associates. After we received in the 7 responses, they went to our individual evaluation team members, which they scored them. Out of a 100-point scale, the top 3 candidates out of that scoring process were then taken on to oral interview, which were held in this room, and they were public meetings. The top 3 candidates were Barbara McMurray, Cope Architecture, and Michael Brady Incorporated. And please note that the evaluation team unanimously made a recommendation to me that Michael Brady should go on as our architecture, engineer, and programming services. So at this point, I will just introduce Michael Brady to you, and then I'll do a brief closing and we can go from there if you have any questions or concerns. Okay.
I'm Jay Hinderlight. I'm with Michael Brady. I'm the principal there. I'm responsible for judicial and detention projects that we do. I'm going to be going through the presentation, and so is John Oswald from Trainer, but we are going to give you the light version tonight because it was about 35, 40 minutes when we did the presentation that day. So we're open to questions afterwards, but we'll try to slim this down a little bit for you tonight. During the past 7 years, I've been involved with the Campbell County project, which was a judicial center, expansion of the detention center at Anderson County. We just completed the documents. We're bidding the Monroe County Justice Center, and we're working with Loudoun and Cott County at this time. And on all those projects, we have been working with the folks at Trainer. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. We are looking at this as being more than just a project to build something. Yes, we're architects and we're engineers, but we think the issue is more than just building. We think we're looking at this on 3 different levels. The first one is how can you reduce the number of people maybe are going to jail? I mean, the cheapest bed you ever have is the one that you don't have to fill. So, we're going to work with you, and we've got an expert I'm going to talk about that will help us with that. Is there ways to reduce lengths of stay? Is there alternatives to, incarceration? Is there a way to, expand the pretrial release? We'll look at those things with you. And our goal is not to tell you what to do, it's just to put options out there and let you see what options are there. The next thing is how to extend the life of the jail. I mean, you've got a better jail than a lot of counties do right now. How to extend the life of that jail, what do we do to make the most of it? And yes, probably at some point there will have to be some beds built, but what are the right kinds of beds to build? We're not coming in with a notion of what that could be. And then the third thing is consider a transition center. Is there a way to, once someone's went through jail, to transition them to the community where they don't come back? I think the Sheriff's Department would tell you they have a lot of repeat offenders, and that just costs a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of the same folks they see again and again. We have put together a team that's both local and national. We thought that we need the best professionals that we could get together to help you through this project. Now, we know that people like to work with people that they know and trust, and this is part of our community. We're familiar with Blount County. In the last 20 years, 25 years, we did 20+ projects here, $45 million worth of work. Some of those you're going to recognize as fairly lately is the Prospect Elementary, the Pro Nova, and we just got through doing the assessments for William Blount and Heritage High Schools. So, this 20% of our employees actually live in this county. So, 90 employees, that's quite a few. So, this is home. It's important to us. A lot of our leadership are from Blount County or live here. Our CEO, Eddie Jett, actually grew up in Blount County, and he considers this his home. Bill Steverson still lives over in Maryville, raised his children here. He was responsible for the Prospect project and is working on I did the assessment for Heritage and Blount. Roy Latham. Roy, you've been here, 50 years in the community?
Yes.
Yeah, 50 years plus working and living here. So it is home to us, and that's the reason we were really enthusiastic about this project. It's personal. It's personal. But we felt like we need to bring in even more local talent. Rick Russell is sitting with us here today. I'll tell you a little bit more about Rick later as we get into the project, but Rick was part of the original Justice Center. So there's no one that knows more about that Justice Center, I think, than Rick himself. And that's always an advantage when you're going in to see how you can maximize that. Chris Soro, his firm does some of the best work in Blount County. He knows the area here, and whatever we need to do civil-wise, we feel like he's a great access to us. Michael Brady and all the detention and judicial work we've done in the last 7 years, we've worked with Trainer, and there's a reason. We feel like that, you know, we're great architects. You probably love your family doctor, I do mine, but if he finds a lump and he thinks it's cancerous, I ain't letting him cut it out of there. I mean, that just isn't what he does. So you go to a specialist. So we believe in bringing the local expertise, but we also think the folks that every day do detention work have more options than folks that just do it on an occasional basis. Sharon was here with us the last time. Sharon and I have worked together over the last 7 years. There's been some weeks I've probably spent more time with her than with my family. So, you know, we complete each other's sentences. John, I've only worked with John probably a year and a half. John's a little different, and I hope you don't mind me saying it, but he's really creative. He's seen a lot of things. He finds unique ways to deal with things, and I think you'll be impressed when he starts going over some stuff here in a few minutes. The different thing for us is we've not worked with Mark Goldman before. Oops, the wrong thing. Sorry about that. We have not worked with Mark Goldman before. Mark, his specialty is going through and doing alternatives to sentencing. He's the gentleman who'll come in here and say, have you tried this? Have you thought about this? What could we do to help you with this? Not to tell you getting to do it. I know you all been there before, but what are options? Is there things that you can do other than housing prisoners? And, you know, some people just need to be in jail, but is there any way to maximize what you've got? That's what Mark does. That's his specialty. He caught me off guard because he says, I've been in and out of jail since the 70s. I'm like, I say, what? Well, he actually started working in jail. So he understands what the Sheriff's Department does. He understands the challenges that they're facing. Rick, I think your first work in the county was early 90s, and that was actually because you came under a federal lawsuit and something had to be done. And the first thing that was done was actually to, if I can get this to work, it's not, was to build something in the bottom of the old existing building just down the street here. That satisfied of what, maybe 3 years, 2 years? That's about it. And then he was the planner for the new Justice Center. He was involved from the beginning all the way through construction. He knows the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. You know, he understands that building, and we think that that's important. This is real impressive that it was done under budget and on schedule, but, you know, Rick's revealed a few things to me that, you know, there were some things to save back, cut that budget back that probably wish you hadn't done once you did it. So, you know, you save money, but is it good long term? We know where to try to go find some of those gremlins, hopefully. It was designed for expansion between the two pods. Let me go back here. Between the two sexagons, is that right? Hexagons? There is a quarter that leads to a parking lot in the back. I call it the gray mile. It's not green. But there is a nice area in the back to build an addition. And I think the original concept was to build another sexagon, which would have get you, what, maybe 170, somewhere in that neighborhood, 160, 170. But you're done. I mean, you pretty well filled the area if you do that. So John's going to talk about some options about that. You know, the kitchen, when this building was done, it was built for 350. Well, you've been housing 500 to 600 at times. That kitchen's been operated 2 shifts a day. You know, it's getting wore out. I mean, it's just, you know, it's being used a lot and it's having a hard time keeping up. Storage, you walk through the building over there, you know, storage is at a maximum. That's an issue to be looked at. The laundry, when you've got almost twice as many inmates as you started out with, well, those washers are running a big part of the day. So you know, those are things that he knows about and we'll look into. Probably cutting edge when the building was built. You bring the public from the waiting up to the center of the inmate cell area, and the inmates up and they talk through a glass. Most places now do it by having them wait in the lobby and talk through a screen. you know, and the inmates never leave the cell block, so you save a whole lot of labor. Those are the kinds of things that Rick will be looking at with us. Now, it comes back to how can we maximize your facility and do the most with what you've got. John, you want to take it on from there?
Thank you, Jay. As Jay introduced me earlier as, I guess, the odd fellow, my name is John Eisenlau with Trainer HL, and I just want to back up for a second. Jay did a great job of kind of setting the tone, but as far as the slides that I'll walk you through right now, it's, in my mind, and we see this often, it's a combination of looking at the current assets that you have, the current facility. It's a balance of looking at the alternate sentencing strategies that you have, and then the potential solution to the building, which may be a phase solution, it may be a master plan of the site, but there's three really, really important pieces of the puzzle. And I'll kind of walk you through a little bit of what gives us some thoughts, if I'm using this correctly. Just advance it normally. Okay, the first thing I wanted to start with to make you aware of kind of a sobering thought is that most jails annually cost about $5 per square foot to operate. That's normally the maintenance, utilities, and things of that nature. It's one avenue that I'd want to study with you right away and understand what it costs to kind of run the facility from a maintenance standpoint, from an energy consumption standpoint, because I think this is sort of low-hanging fruit. We approach this with most of our clients. Are there ways of switching out your light fixtures, using low flush fixtures, efficient ways of extracting cost out of the facility, improving your building envelope. Basic issues like this are part of the kind of conversations that we'll have with you. How effective is your video visitation? I know you may not have one in place right now. I've seen the facility. Can it be improved through the proper location of a video visitation strategy in the building? I know there's certainly some interest to do that. It's a relatively inexpensive thing to do in the big scheme of it as it relates to staff costs and moving detainees around the facility. How's the court side running? Can we be efficient from a video standpoint? Is that permissible? Is that something you'd want to evaluate? It certainly improves the custody conditions and minimizes the movement of detainees. I start with topics like this because this is really where we would recommend you begin, looking at ways of just improving the overall functionality of the building. We haven't added on to the building. We haven't talked about alternate sentencing strategies, but just look at the what I call the asset. Let's talk about ways of modifying your asset. For example, you have a lot of dormitory space, and we have seen over the years that dormitory space is actually on the decline right now nationally. That's largely due to the sort of hardened nature of most of the detainees that are being incarcerated nationally. We have a number of clients, interestingly enough, and this is one of them, in Benton County right now, where we have modified a dormitory into a cell environment. It's possible. You can do it. And you have some dorms, and that may be something that we consider through a programming effort. But I bring it up to let you know that there are conditions like this nationally where existing housing configurations are being modified relatively efficiently and relatively cost effectively. So, as some of you probably know, there was a concept at one point in time to expand onto this facility. And I'll just take you through our thoughts about it a little bit. This seven-sided housing unit, which was fairly prevalent in the industry in the 80s and 90s because of its centralized staff station and the ability for the staff to look into all the housing units. And that works fairly well, generally speaking. And certainly this building was conceived to have a housing unit that was somewhat similar. And what we did for the purposes of discussion is we placed a theoretical housing unit if you added onto the building. We're not saying that this is necessarily the concept, but if you did, this was the original concept, generally speaking, for the facility. Now, we've got some issues with this because we think it actually limits your site. So we stepped back for a moment and we said, let's master plan the site over 30 or 40 years. Let's look at it that way, rather than just duplicating a housing unit that's here. It could be that the sheriff's department is not in love with this particular housing unit. Maybe we can come up with a better one with better site plans. So what we did here is we basically showed you an example of if you theoretically, your property, believe it or not, if you needed a facility that was, say, twice the size, and I'm certainly not suggesting that, but you could fit that much area on this property. The point being is that there would be no reason to ever abandon this property. Through a thoughtful renovation, you could keep this property for 50, 60, 70 years and do it very creatively how you add on to the facility based on your needs. So you'd never build this much housing. But what I would suggest, when we look at master planning the site, that we consider a re-entry function on the site. It's very popular in the industry right now. Day reporting can take place in the re-entry facility, so to get people out into the public and get them back to work as quickly as possible. So what I show you here is just a couple of different options. Should you determine that you have to expand the facility, we think you should take sort of an incremental look at it and make sure that the building that's placed on the site, short-term, whether that's short-term or long-term, is in the right place for the overall optimum use of the property, is really what we're getting at. We also believe that if you were phasing this, and based on Jim's report that we studied, you probably build the housing first, you relocate people, and then you would solve some of your support function issues in the facility, the booking, the kitchen, all of the back of house, as I call it, that is normally stressed when you add on to a facility or it ages over time. But we would probably recommend whatever the account needs are, build those, move detainees, and then recondition some of the existing housing and solve some of the support issues in the facility itself. And definitely focus on the reentry. The reentry, for those of you who may or may not know a lot about how reentry works, it needs public access. So there's a very specific area on the site where the reentry would want to be if it's deemed that it's appropriate for the use and helps in the overall movement of folks back into the community. So this was Mark's piece that he talked about that, again, I would start with the condition of the facility with the Sheriff's Department, both from the security side and from an energy side, and then we would dig in, obviously very aggressively, into the potential, Mark calls them enhancements to your current alternate sentencing. And you have a number of them that are working very nicely. So let's find out a way to expand it the best way we can. And add some new ones that he has some thoughts on. Jim recommended the population expediter in the facility. Of course, that would have to be a staffed and funded position, but it makes lots of sense. There are certainly examples of that around the country to help move people through the facility even quicker and have them focused on their condition. You know, there's expanding the pretrial release is certainly an excellent idea. There's no question about it. You know, that reduces length of stay. Those are things we can also look at. These are non-custody alternatives, as you can see Mark notes here. Day reporting, this would take place in the reentry component that I showed you on the site. I know there was some discussion about maybe there's some functions that are off-site for this facility. I would highly recommend that they probably stay on the site for ease of movement, security, and efficiency of the building. But this is a classic reentry day reporting type system. I'll show you some examples of this. Expanding your drug recovery court. I did this with Fulton County in Georgia. It worked very, very well. The mental health diversion gets a little trickier, in my opinion, because it requires a very specific type of facility to put people in. But we can certainly talk about it, and Mark can expand on it more in his experience around the country. He's doing a couple of these in Illinois right now, where they're diverted out real early and they're not in the facility. It's very expensive to expand your medical facilities. Here's some other alternate sanctions that he's recommending as well. Here's some cost models that they have developed. So we've now looked at the facility and we've looked at the alternate sentencing. I've showed you a couple of comments or concepts, but in my mind, how do you sort of repair people and get them back into the facility, into the community quickly? I'll show you two examples of where we're doing this right now. This is actually in Adams County, Colorado. And they call it a transition center and a diversion center. Some of these terms are interchangeably used in the industry right now, but this is a facility that houses about 184 detainees, believe it or not, and it's 28,000 square feet. I show you this example because this is a renovation of an existing building, and it's used for diversion and transition needs. What's interesting, what I find fascinating about this project is it's done very cost effectively. You can see the residential cost here is about $13K a year, which is substantially less than incarcerating somebody. So this works very well for Adams County. It's under construction right now. I can give you many more details about it. I show it to you because it has some interesting kind of unique program pieces to it. The day rooms are sized for no more than 30 beds. It's a direct supervision model. It's a passive living room concept, which means that they don't really eat in their day rooms. They actually go to a dining area. And they have laundry services and restrooms on site. They're drug tested, they come and go, they work in the community. It's highly effective. They're single level dormitories. There's a lot of visitation area because the family comes and visits with them. There's meeting areas as well in the facility. And there's some real sensitivity to the type of acoustics and furniture that are in here. So it really fosters lots of communications. A lot of case managers in here. There's 1 for 20 as a ratio of inmates. And there's special case managers for sex offenders that are 1 to 12. Lots of daylight, privacy. So it's a really kind of, I hate the term normalized environment in the industry, but it really is. This, I believe, is the closest example that I can show you to what you're probably faced with on the site. This is Douglas County, Kansas, which is seeking funding right now. But if you bear with me for a minute, on the right-hand side of this facility is the new reentry function. On the left-hand side of this facility, this was existing, by the way. This detention center was existing. On the left-hand side, what we have programmed for them is a new booking area, just what I'm sure the Sheriff's Department and Jim Martin are discussing. There are classification housing units, classified folks, nice and close to the booking area. There are mental health units, male and female, also on this side of the facility, and the reentry facility on the other. The program pieces here are very, very similar to what Jim kind of alludes to in his program. This is male, female on the mental health side. It's also male, female on the reentry side. So these folks, as you can imagine, literally walk out the front door of the facility eventually. And when they have the day report, they go back in. This is a completely separate entry to the facility. These are examples of the medical rooms. They're extremely normalized. There are no stacked bunks whatsoever for the safety of the detainees, male and female, not in this particular room, but and you can see that some of the furnishings that are selected, it's less a cell and more like a room for recovery. Direct supervision. There are male housing units that have 28, so they're relatively modest-sized housing units, and the females are also relatively small. They're 14. Sightlines are nice. They're all on. One of the trends in the industry right now is try to keep housing on one level. When you stack housing units, normally the sightlines are conflicted from one level to the next, so the more you can put on one ground, the sightlines are much better. Safer, people aren't jumping off balconies and things like that. Lots of outdoor space in this facility too, lots of natural light and daylight for recovery.
Don, I think the point there to be made though, folks look at that and say, oh, that looks nice. But that's actually cheaper to build than hardened jail cells and cheaper to operate.
Yes, yes, it
So
is.
perception is not always reality in that case.
So the last slide. You want to take that, Jay?
I'll-
I mean, I have a thought about it. I mean, there's absolutely no way you can build yourself out of an issue like this. But like I said earlier, I think it's really a balance of, let's look at the facility and try to get it operating as efficiently as possible from an energy standpoint. Help the Sheriff's Department with sight lines, any kind of security issues. You know, we've got lots of experience with that. look at the alternate sentencing strategies, really kind of dial down on those, make sure you've completely maximized that potential. Then that'll determine your needs, then decide how much facility you need to expand, if any. You may not have to. It's hard to say. Without the evaluation of those three parts is just absolutely critical. And then you don't get yourself in this kind of situation. You simply just can't add on to the facility. That will not work.
Well said, John. That's what I was going to say. The key is we need to look at it with an open mind and build what needs to be built and do what other things that need to be done. And our whole goal is just to help you make the right decisions.
And when you do find the need, let's make sure we master plan your site. So even if your need is this small, that piece, wherever it's located on that site, does not restrict the balance of that site and the use of the rest of the site. That's a common mistake, unfortunately, in the industry, is putting the small building in the wrong spot right away. So let's find the best spot for you, and then if you need to expand further, you do that over time.
And that is something that a lot of counties are facing. They've got a jail and there is no place to expand it, and that's a bad problem.
We see it frequently.
Yes. Well, we're open to
Happy
questions.
to answer any questions.
One second, please. Ms. Monroe, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The case study of Douglas County, Kansas, was this an additional facility to what they already had? And what kind of cost are we talking about in terms of building that and then, of course, running it?
Okay. The original facility, and I apologize for not having the original plan on here, but just say for the moment that the original facility is roughly this outline, okay? So and it's functioning right now. You can Google it. It's a perfectly functioning building. And then the re-entry was added, and then from about here out was added here. This facility is 75,000 square feet of program that was added to this. This is a much larger facility than you have. But the cost of construction is probably somewhere around $250 a square foot. That's fairly common in the industry right now. I hate to throw numbers around like that, but we have bid some correctional facilities recently that are over 300. Most of the county jails, properly designed, in my opinion, should be under $300 a square foot, depending on the complexity of the site, which you don't really have. Again, this is quite a big program. This is probably much more than you would be looking for. But again, I think it's a good example of one in the industry right now where re-entry, classification, and mental health are all in the same jigsaw puzzle. Does that answer your question?
Part of it. How much were we looking at? You just gave a square foot, price per square foot, but what square footage was that before? So what were we looking at? Because 126 detainees is substantially less than 350.
350.
Well, we have 350, but the case study is 126. What was it housing before? You said there was a facility there.
Oh, I couldn't give you I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at more information for you. But yes, that's the facility itself is holding substantially more detainees than that.
Is that what was added on, was 126?
Yes,
Okay,
that's correct. That is correct.
okay. Could you supply more information about that?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you all the fact sheet on it if you'd like.
Yeah, I would like that. You gave us a DeKalb County example, and the numbers are too small to read.
It's back in Mark's slides. This one here.
Yeah, I can't tell what the cost there is. Can that be supplied to us? And what is that showing? Because it's too small to read in the packet.
What he was doing here is he was identifying a bed count reduction by way of the ultimate sentencing strategy, and then they were formulating the value of that. But I'd be happy to get you that documentation.
We could get you a sheet of that.
Sure, there's probably more to it than just this, but that was the message of this slide that he was trying to basically convey.
The idea is there is a dollar value behind every person that does not have to be housed in the jail. And there's a way to calculate that, and over a 30-year lifespan, that's a considerable number.
We can supply that for you. Be happy to.
Okay. And the Adams County, Colorado as well, was that a new facility? It does.
The reason I showed this one is it was a renovation of the existing building that I thought was kind of fascinating. If you had a building here in the county that could function in this capacity, and that's a much larger conversation, it's the only reason we showed it is that there are examples in the industry where people are renovating and expanding the building here. This one I think is kind of clever that the county went and bought the building. And this is a wood frame construction facility. It's relatively low level security, if you will. But you have to be selected and chosen to be diverted into this program to begin with. So there's a real careful analysis of the people that are actually diverted into this transition center. But I can get you more. It's under construction, so I can actually get you some construction numbers if you want.
Don, I think you said that's an option, but you usually find it's best that if it's actually on the jail side as far as the sheriff's department being able to access these
I think so.
conveniences.
I think so. I think this one's kind of highly unusual, but and it's a staffing analysis too. To staff this versus having it attached to the jail, what are the staffing implications in both approaches? This one was certainly kind of done on the cheap, but if it works for them,
Okay, it was mentioned that I think it was the Douglas County one.
Douglas.
Even though it looks nice, it costs less to run. And is that because there's less staff? Or where would the savings come from?
Well, this housing arrangement is predominantly single-level housing arrangements. These are direct supervision units. Here, this is a double unit. So it's a staffing, ultimately the staffing drove the layout of this facility. But yes, it's laid out more efficiently for staffing.
And could you provide us with those numbers as well?
I can probably provide you with a staffing count to run this area of the facility, sure. We'll look into that.
All right, and what they had before?
Yeah, I'll find the original facility and then I'll give you the addition as well, so we can kind of compare the two of them.
Okay. It looks like that this presentation primarily focused on expanding the existing facility. Are you all in any way considering building a new facility that would not be on that site, on the current site?
We have not considered that at this point.
No, and I'm not sure, I would have to spend some time talking to the Sheriff's Department and lots of other people. But you can see through our concept analysis that you really don't have to do that unless you feel the condition of the building is such that it needs to be completely replaced. My apologies.
And let me also say, this is in the preliminary stages. We have not at this point had any meetings. NBI has not met with anybody from the sheriff's office. They've just met with me at this point. We're in the very beginning stages of this, so they haven't even been privy to what we even rated our want list. So again, this is in the early stages. We're just trying to select somebody to fill our own process.
This is just the what ifs without any input, and that's a dangerous thing to do.
It's not uncommon, I will say, that we'll analyze building new versus renovating and adding on. We would consider that part of the assignment on a project like this, unless all of you decide that's just not a direction you want to go in. But it's worth looking at.
But at the same time, your structure is approaching 20 years old, a little less than 20 years old, and it is much nearer than many with all your courts and stuff there. So there, as I said earlier, there's counties that would love to have what you've got. So to, first stage we look at is probably what does it take to improve what you've got. That's quite an investment you've already got there.
That's why I brought up a comment about something as simple as your energy costs. I'd be interested to know what they're like, and we can compare those to, industry models for you. But even small numbers like that become large numbers over 30 years. And we certainly work with clients right now who are replacing buildings because they're so energy inefficient and staffing inefficient that those two issues put together drive potentially a brand new building that performs better. But all I'm saying here is that if you've got enough real estate, you're likely to add on to the building, but if you don't like your current building for whatever reasons, we'd be happy to take a look quickly and see if that makes sense.
And so it was mentioned by the purchasing agent that we're early in this process, so where exactly are we?
At this point, our understanding is it's a matter of this being presented to the county commission and us being selected. We have not even submitted us a contract yet. Nothing has to do that. So at this point, we basically have done nothing except put together the presentation.
So what would be presented to the county commission? This, or are you going to come with a contract?
Well, at this point, I would assume they're looking for a contract for us to give the services.
And if I could address that part. At this point, my recommendation to you all would be to support me in my recommendation to the commission by allowing NBI to come on, and at that point, we can review the contract then. So that's kind of my ask of you tonight, is to support me in my recommendation to the full commission to have NBI come on. That's for architectural engineering and program services. And after that point, then we would meet again and sort of get the want list and the need list and go from there, after we review the contract first.
We have some other people who'd like to ask some questions also, so I'm going to move forward. Looks like Mr. French, you're next.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm a little confused in our task tonight. Looking at the agenda, we're just taking the recommendation of the purchasing agent and reviewing what we believe is a qualified architect firm, programming firm, and we're not discussing any of the programming at this point. So I guess
they
the
were
line of questioning that was previous to mine, I guess I was a little confused that we're getting the cart before the horse, and we're just looking at qualifications, whether we feel this firm is capable of even going
Correct.
forward with Blount County. Am I wrong in that, or are we?
No, that was true.
Okay.
I was just allowing maybe more questions. We'll recognize Mr. Kaler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Chief French in regards to the fact I think we're putting the cart before the horse. We have brought these people here tonight to introduce themselves and to make the other members of this full committee aware of who they are and who the committee, under the direction of our purchasing agent, has recommended that we forward to full commission. So with that said, I don't see the need to force them into trying to answer questions. Obviously, they're not prepared to answer because that's not part of why we're here. So with that said, I'll make a motion to forward this to full commission.
I have a motion, a second, a discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions
Oh.
I'd like to ask in regard to that motion.
Mr. Bennett, you're
Just
being
to assess, so I understand all the individuals involved, but I'd like to know kind of what the roles are, because I'm familiar with Michael Brady and know Rick Russell from when we built the jail, but I'd just like to understand what each of your company's role is going to be. And then I have some commentary I'd like to add to support this motion when they're finished telling us that. Is that okay, Mr. Chairman?
I have no problem with that, sir.
As the lead architect with Michael Brady, the principal in charge, we're basically responsible for the project as a whole. Trainer associates are the expertise that we bring in that basically knows more about jails than just about anyone else to bring in the expertise of what are the different options we can look at.
So trainers been involved, you've been involved with transitional facilities and with other, rather than just putting somebody in jail, you've worked with communities to work on alternative sentencing, that kind of thing?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
They've been involved with that, but we've also brought on Mark Goldman. That's what he does pretty much full-time, is work with counties to look at other options other than just having to build more jail space.
Okay. And then you got C2RL, I know what they do, and then Rick and his firm are going to be involved in the engineering portion of it. Would that be correct? And see,
Rick is going to be a consultant to us
Okay.
and recommendations of how to best work with this existing building.
so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I support this, moving this to the full commission with our recommendation. I think it's critical that the county commission look at this with a very, very keen eye to the fact that the statement that I liked the most that these folks said was that we're not going to build our way out of this. And our judiciary and our sheriff's department are the best in the country. And it's important that they have an input into this and allow us to potentially get away. We've got a terrible drug problem. We've got mental health problems that need to be dealt with without just putting people in jail. And the experts need to be involved. And I feel like the purchasing agent has brought us the experts to work with our experts. And so I support this motion. Thank you.
Ms. Monroe, you're being recognized for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was no motion made before the first time when I spoke. This is the first time on this motion. As far as, I have some questions for the purchasing agent. Since she is making this recommendation, I would like for her to, I'd like to ask her, how much vetting did you do in this process of looking at the letters of engagement that MBI submitted to various counties? They've named Loudoun County, Anderson, Campbell, and Monroe County. How much did you look at their engagement letters and whether they stuck to and followed through what they said in their engagement letters?
In the majority of the projects that you mentioned, I contacted either their sheriff's office or their purchasing agent, depending on how they're set up, and asked them during their process how they worked with NBI, what the final outcome was, and how did it work 5-10 years later, because not all of those are new projects. And that's why I think that the evaluation team came up with a unanimous decision, is everybody that I asked, I couldn't find anybody that had a real problem with them. So to me, that spoke volumes for their company. And you've noticed a lot of these guys have worked in different capacities with our previous jail. When I ask about specific references for Chris at C2RL, again, they just came with glowing recommendations. So to answer your question in full, I contacted the individual counties and got to the person that dealt with individual projects and talked to them personally.
Who did you speak with in Loudoun County?
I would have to go back and look at my notes. I'm horrible with names, as I think you all know.
Okay, I have here the letter of engagement from MBI to Loudoun County dated October 12th of 2015. And in this letter, it says under project information, proposed improvements and use, it says expansion and renovation of existing Justice Center. Now that's very interesting because if you look, it appears that got way off of what the engagement letter actually said. Because if you look, what was actually presented to the commission that didn't even get a motion and died for lack of a motion was a $31 million new facility that would have been at a new site. And in the process of that, during that time,
Ms. Monroe?
that actually got, we are here discussing this company, and I want to discuss what we are discussing, why we need this company, and I am looking exactly at what this company has
This was
done.
the company that was decided by the purchasing department.
Yes, and I am examining this company.
I don't think that this
And
is the place to do that.
This is, yes, it is.
I
You're going to
disagree.
make a
I disagree.
recommendation. We need to look at the company we're recommending.
And
And so in the process of that, the TCI just decertified the Loudoun County Jail. And if you look at a county commissioner comment,
Ms.
he
Monroe,
said
you're
that he
getting off
thought.
the subject.
No, I'm
We're-
not getting off the subject.
Yes,
This is
ma'am.
discussing the
Point of order,
company
point of
that was
order, point
hired.
of order. Are we going to argue with the chairman?
Point of order's been called. Mr. Kaler, you're.
Okay, then I-
We're going to be a civil group here, and we're not going to argue with the chairman, plain and simple.
The chairman can make a ruling. Is this on task or not?
I feel that the subject is that the Director of Purchasing submitted with their committee who they decided for. They made a presentation of who they are, and then now we have a motion with a second to move it forward. So with that, I'd like to just move it forward.
Is it on task? Are you ruling me out of order or not?
I feel the questioning that you have is out of order.
Okay, so am I declared out of order? Am I ruled out of order or not? Make your ruling.
I feel that in this situation, you're getting off subject, and we should vote on it to move forward, if we're going to move forward.
So is that a declaration that I am out of order?
That's my explanation.
Okay, then I will challenge the rule of the chair.
So we have a challenge, so what do I do on that?
You have to vote.
Well, we have a vote, so those in favor of Mrs. Monroe's challenge, vote yes. If you're against it, vote no. So how do we set that?
Let's do roll call.
So we'll do a roll call vote.
Explain the rule, the vote again, please, Mr. Chairman.
So if you're in favor of Mrs. Monroe's challenge, vote yes. If you're against it, vote no.
Thank you.
So
Typically vote yes to hold the chair.
I'm just giving it to you on that. So starting out, John Adams? No. Dave Bennett?
No.
Mike Kaler?
No.
Randy Vineyard? Or he's not a non-voting, I'm sorry. Jeff French? And since Ms. Monroe?
Yes.
And I vote no. So
5 no votes and 1 yes vote.
So the next question is with the motion to move it forward with a second, so we'll do a roll call vote on that. Again, John Adams.
Members can vote electronically.
Oh, you can vote on that?
the original motion.
Oh, okay, we can vote electronically on that. And I'm new to all this, so I apologize. Yes,
Just to the full commission.
so yes to move it to the full commission. If you are in favor of moving it to the full commission, please vote. So we have 5 yes, 1 no. The motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. So meeting's adjourned.